2019 is come and gone, 2020 is here, but I have a special guest to go over our best picks or our best pickups of 2019.
I finally found what I'm missing, and now you got all my attention. Driving me wild, got me wishing that you were all mine. You're irresistible, so refreshing. You're irresistible. Tell the essence. I can feel your energy all over me. Close my eyes and I breathe in. You're irresistible.
Welcome back to Carolina Fragrance Reviews. I'm your host, Cam. Make sure that you're subscribed, activate that notifications bell, and follow us on Instagram at cam.byrd. Make sure that you show your support to CFR by supporting us by going and buying some of our merch. Our link is down below. And if you'd like to be featured on the channel and pushed on Instagram, make sure that you submit your picture just like our friend Jeremy did here, and we will put your IG handle on there. You'll be featured on the channel and on Instagram. So as far as 2019 goes, some of the releases were that we had some good ones, we had some bad ones, but we're not just going over 2019 releases today, we're going over 2019 releases and or best pickups of 2019. And joining me today is our good friend Daver from the channel Fragrance Bros. Daver, thank you so much for joining us on this. And this is also a two-part video, so make sure you go over to Fragrance Bros to see our picks on his channel as well. Daver, how about kicking things off for us, my friend?
Hey everyone, I'm Daver with the Fragrance Bros. Thank you, Cam, for having me on. Really appreciate this. And thank you everyone, if you've already watched my video and you came over here on Cam's channel, definitely thank you for coming on and watching this second part. We really worked hard on this, and I'm so thankful to be a part of this collaboration with him. Really love your channel, Cam, so thank you. Now, as I said in my video, some of these came out last year, and some of them I just tried for the first time last year, but I wanted to include both of them because everyone's fragrance journey is different, and it's always great to say what is the best of last year, especially for you. First on the list is Grand Soir by Maison Francis Kurkdjian, and this one is a fantastic, fantastic amber that is very wearable. It's not super loud. It sits in the perfect range. I find that a lot of his fragrances really do that. He does that really well. They're not super strong, but they're very, very wearable. And this is a great example of how to make an amber really wearable every day and almost every time of the year. He adds a little bit of a tonka in there that adds kind of just this familiar warmth to it. I would say accessibility. And because it's accessible, I think that you will like it, but I think also others will like it who smell it on you, so that's really great. My second choice is also from Maison Francis Kurkdjian, and that is Baccarat Rouge 540. I know. It's a hype train, but I think it definitely deserves it. It is one of those fragrances I was almost inclined to not believe the hype going in. I try not to be that way whenever I smell a fragrance, but I was almost inclined not to because the hype was so strong with this one. But then I smelled it and I was blown away, legitimately blown away by how fine-tuned it was. And I said in my review of it, it's almost like finding a new species. It's so different from any other fragrance out there. And I can definitely see why there are people that are trying to copy its success, because it's very successful from an artistic point of view. It's somewhat musky, somewhat ambery, somewhat spicy, somewhat sweet, or it's very sweet. It's all of those things wrapped up into one, and it makes this unique experience as a perfume that I love. Next is Gravitas Pour Homme. This was, of course, created by Mr. Smelly and his fragrance company. It's an amazing fougere that is gutsy and has a lot of lavender and spice and patchouli and musk and maybe a little bit of vanilla in there. It's fantastic. If you don't have it yet, if you missed the Kickstarter, definitely check out Dan's channel for more information on how to get it, because I think it's worth every penny. It is fantastic. definitely check it out. Next is Orca by House of Matriarch. And House of Matriarch is one of those houses that I really got to explore more in 2019, and I'm really glad I did. They're an all-natural house that makes high perfumery, they say, and this is one that I think is very distinct and great for the house. And it is an ambergris-based scent that is very musky, and it's almost just musk. And you'd think that might be a little bit boring, but I don't think so at all. Whenever you wear it, it just kind of has a really wonderful, almost lived-in skin smell. Like, you know, whenever you get close to someone and you just like the way they smell, that's what this fragrance smells like. And I absolutely adore it. It's a fantastic scent. There's a few that you have to try from House of Matriarch, this being one of them. So yeah, Orca, amazing. Next is Barkan by Teo Cabanel. And when I got this, I was immediately taken aback by how wonderful it smells. It's an amber scent, but it's not strictly just amber. There's more to it. There's a little bit of myrrh in there, which is always great. I always love that. But from the name Barkan, it's supposed to be reminiscent of sand dunes in, I believe, Morocco. And if these sand dunes smell like this, I've got to move there because this smells incredible. It reminds me somewhat of scents I've tried before, like Ambre Rousse from Parfums d'Empire, but I think this is much more wearable than that and has a wonderful kind of dry, arid, amber and myrrh type of smell that is fantastic, and I really loved it. So yeah, Barkan, incredible. Next is Ombre Loup by Rania J, and this was one that I was really floored by last year just because of how different it is. In my review of it, I mentioned how this is very much like a bridge between ambergris and amber. It's considered an amber scent, and ambergris is sometimes considered ambery in the way that it smells, even though it's not. And amber is a very different monster, and this is kind of the bridge between both of those type of smells. It's very musky, but it has some ambery type of qualities to it. I really loved it. It has almost a rubbery type of smell that I really love, and that type of weird thing in there is something that brings me and draws me back each time I wear it, and it's easily one of the best I tried from 2019. Next is Corrigan by Luban, and you knew this was going to be in here if you watched my video before, but Corrigan is incredible. 2019, as I said in my previous video, is very much the year of Luban for me. It's the year that I found out about Luban and fell in love with them and found scents that I think are just incredible. Corrigan was one of those scents, and this one is something that doesn't exist in nature, and that is supposed to be the smell of like a caramel forest. When you smell it, you immediately get what that means. It is somewhat woody, somewhat sweet and caramel-like, but it's not at the same time. And it's also a little bit boozy as well. It's all of those things wrapped into one. It's kind of just this slice in between genres, and I really love it. It's a wonderful scent that really will bewitch you whenever you smell it, and I think that's the point. It's a great scent. Definitely check this one out, Corrigan. My last choice is Obsidian by the House of Revere, or Revere, not really sure. Anyway, Obsidian is a fragrance that is really a dark horse from 2019. They sent this to me for review, and I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to think whenever they did it. And when I got it, I was really pleased. This is a very, very musky, green, citrusy scent that I love. It's really easy to wear. If you know my channel, you know I love the citrusy, musky scents, or just musky scents in general. And this one is one of the best. It has just one of the most pleasant smelling musks in the world. And I don't know why they call it Obsidian. It doesn't bring to mind obsidian or rocks or lava or black or shiny or anything. It just really reminds me of really nice musk mixed with citrus on top. It is an absolute showstopper fragrance, especially for spring and summer, and is gonna be one of my go-tos in the next coming months. So yeah, Obsidian by the House of Revere, amazing. So those are all my choices. Thanks again, Cam, for having me on. Really appreciate it. I'll have to come up there to the Carolinas and come see you sometime soon. So yeah, really love your channel, and thanks again for having me on.
David, thanks so much for coming on today and actually having me on your channel as well. And you had like a lot of picks that actually jogged my memory that I'd actually forgot that came out. And of course there was some that I've never even heard of, but great picks nevertheless. So let's go ahead and tee up my best pickups of 2019. The first fragrance I'm gonna kick it off with is actually a fragrance that was released in 2019, and I actually almost let it pass by as the very best release of 2019, and it may have missed it by a very small margin, especially as far as designer releases go. It is none other than Armani Code Absolute. This was very well received by the fragrance community and the consumers alike. It is a DNA that is beloved and has been for a long time. Actually, the original Armani Code was definitely like a signature scent of mine. And then of course, they had different variations. Profumo was a smashing success, but I actually thought that this might have actually outdid all of them. Not saying that, it's better than Profumo, but maybe just a smidge. This one actually has some green apple, some mandarin orange. It also has some tonka bean, carrot seed, vanilla, and rum. Very, very sexy fragrance, very mass appealing. If anything, I would say that it's more of like a grown-up version of Armani Code Profumo. Next fragrance is actually one that I think maybe gave Armani Code Absolute a little run for its money. It is another stellar release from 2019, Issey Miyake Pulse of the Night. Now this is another one that was well received and also had people saying that it was a clone of Parfum de Marly Herod. The only thing that they have in common is the vanilla. Yeah, it's got that vanilla in there just like Herod. This was a very, very sexy and inexpensive fragrance that has more of a niche quality to it. Perfect for winter, perfect for like nighttime, especially cool night air. Very well put together fragrance. I was like really kind of blown away by this, to be honest with you. If you guys remember when Noir Ombre came out, it's like everybody's like, yeah, and then it was like a disaster because it became like next to impossible to find here in the United States, or if you did find it, it's like ka-dunk over the top of the head. So as I said, this is a really well put together fragrance. It actually has some incense. It also has some tonka bean, some vanilla, some leather. I mean, just a really, really stellar manly man designer release that actually smells niche. To my nose anyway. And hey, if people are comparing it to Parfum de Marly Herod, even though people say that like Parfum de Marly is more like a niche designer house, hey, whatever you guys want it to be, stellar fragrance, 2019 banger. Next one up is not a 2019 release, but it was definitely a pickup of 2019. I did get a decant of it like 2 years ago. It's the 2011 release, Pardon from Nasomatto. So when I actually got the full presentation in 2019, I was really, really like happy that I could spray it a little more liberally. This is that one that has that iconic wow factor atomizer. Even though I did technically smell this a couple years ago, I picked this up at a really good deal in 2019. Now, when you actually look at the notes in this fragrance, it kind of makes you wonder a little bit, because like when you see florals and oud together, sometimes, not all the time, it's not necessarily a good thing. It takes a skillful hand, especially, like some of the rose and oud. This one is actually done with magnolia and oud. It also has some tonka bean, some chocolate or cacao, and it also has some cinnamon and sandalwood. This is definitely, without a question, one of my favorite 2019 pickups and one of my favorite wintertime fragrances that I have been wearing so far this winter. If you have not checked out Pardon or Pardon, I would highly recommend at least sampling this. Beautiful, beautiful fragrance. I adore it. Before I get into the next fragrance, it comes from a fragrance house. Now, I cannot remember if it was in 2018 or 2019 when I was actually introduced to Imaginary Authors, but 2019 was the year that I picked the majority of my actual bottles of. I think I have smelled pretty much everything they have to offer. I think except maybe one or two. This is not only my favorite Imaginary Authors pickup of 2019, it is my favorite Imaginary Authors fragrance, period. It is Memoirs of a Trespasser. Although Memoirs of a Trespasser may be a vanilla fragrance, there's actually nothing vanilla about Imaginary Authors. I did smell a lot of them, but I pulled the trigger on a few in 2019, and this one is such an amazing fragrance. I've really been enjoying wearing it in the wintertime. Memoirs of a Trespasser has notes of Madagascar vanilla. It also has some myrrh. It also has some bergamot, gaiac wood, ambrette seeds, and benzoin resin. So this is actually kind of a woodsy, resinous vanilla fragrance that is just beloved by anyone, or most anyone who has ever smelled this fragrance, and understandably so. A true gem from Imaginary Authors. 2019 is actually the year that I was introduced to perfumology and Near Guy, and the first fragrance and my favorite fragrance from perfumology is Clutch. The first time that I actually smelled this fragrance, it was sent to me in a decant from my friend OG at Wise Guys Colognes in Las Vegas. And he was like, oh man, you're gonna love this. Because, you know, after I had spoken to him and told him what type of fragrances I really enjoyed, you know, like gourmands and boozy fragrances, tobacco fragrances, and he likes a lot of the same stuff too. He said, oh man, you're gonna love this Clutch. So he sent it out and I like burned through it. And I actually was able to talk to Near Guy and then, you know, give him my experience of wearing his fragrance. And then once I found out like the story behind Clutch, it was wild because I didn't like go look it up or anything. I didn't know, you know, if it was something like if it was, you know, sometimes like indie perfumers are like really, really under the radar and obscure. I have been introduced to some of those people that don't have anything on Fragrantica, anything on the internet. You know, they're like super, super obscure. So honestly, I kind of thought in the very beginning that was the case with Near Guy. I didn't realize that he actually owned like this awesome store, had this awesome company, you know, offer some of the best niche and indie fragrances there is. So it was really kind of mind-boggling to actually read his story, hear about his story behind Clutch, because when I put this on, it actually transported me to like the fall in my 1967 Ford Mustang, driving down a road over here called Rock Hill Road, looking in my rearview mirror, watching the leaves fly up, and, you know, just stick shifting my 67 Mustang with a 302 Boss in it and jamming out to like Queensryche. So hearing about Near and him, you know, same thing, his stick shift Jeep and everything, Clutch, you definitely get an adrenaline rush from this thing. So this one actually has like a peppery elemi, some smoke, ginger, it's got woods and vanilla, just a really, really masculine fragrance if you ask me. This one is actually like definitely something that, you know, would be worn during the fall, but it's not so strong that you couldn't pull it off in some of the warmer months. But definitely for like a mild, you know, like a mild day where it's kind of cool in the evening would definitely suit this perfectly. I have actually worn this like on a cooler evening at the beach. It does really well. It almost gives off a similar vibe. I'm not saying it smells identical because it doesn't, but in the same wheelhouse of By Kilian Single Malt. If you've ever smelled that, you know, they're in the same wheelhouse. Very unique, and the thing about this is, again, they're not the same fragrance. But if you like that type of fragrance and single malt is, you know, like too expensive, you can buy any of Perfumology's fragrances for 95 bucks. This last one is actually like my most nostalgic pickup of 2019, taking me back to my very first fragrance that I ever bought with my own money is Dior Fahrenheit, except this one is the Parfum. I bought the original, you know, like back in the day, back in the 90s, and bought this one. Actually, I did a swap with my buddy Jacob Bryant, or JB Bryant Music. I don't know if you guys remember seeing him on here. That was another pretty cool thing that happened in 2019. He just bought him a new tour bus, if y'all didn't see that. But anyway, JB and I were talking about some different fragrances. We were gonna do some horse trading and everything, and I was like, man, I haven't smelled Fahrenheit in a minute. He's like, well, it don't smell exactly like the OG. What they did with this release though is they actually took the heavy petroleum out of it and replaced it with vanilla. So it almost gives it like that original DNA with vanilla that gives it more of a gourmandish type vibe. So This is like, wow. I was so happy to get this back in my collection. I never thought that Fahrenheit would be back in my collection because, you know, my feelings are a little muddled. I mean, yeah, I am attached to that original DNA, but I just didn't ever go back to bother to smell it until 2019. And lo and behold, I found a formulation that is even better than the OG. I hope you enjoyed today's picks and today's collaboration with Daver from Fragrance Bros. If you enjoyed this video, share it with a friend. Make sure that you go check out our other video over on Fragrance Bros with a completely set of different picks that we had for best pickups or best releases of 2019. Daver, I appreciate you, brother. And until next time, be disruptive, wear what you want, when you want, have fun. Subscribe to Carolina Fragrance Reviews, activate that notifications bell, smash that like button, leave us some comments down below. We'll see you next time on Carolina Fragrance Reviews.